surprised her. Usually I tell her, I've told her before that she's going to be on video, but she didn't want me to surprise her, but I did the opposite of what she said. She wasn't that mad, though. She wasn't upset. I'll put you guys right here for today. There we go. If I can get this to work. Hold on. Almost there. Hello. Thank you guys for asking how I'm doing. I'm doing well today. Doing well today. And thank you for the compliment, too. I will tell her she's pretty. I tell her she's pretty every day, but it'll make her feel good to hear from you guys that she's pretty. So, I'll wait a little bit longer. I've got a tank top on today. It's hot outside. Wait a little bit longer for everyone to join. Is everybody having a good day? Is everybody having a great day? A very busy day here at my school. I'm having a busy day. There we go. Wait a little bit. Thank you for the hearts. I appreciate the hearts. I'm actually getting off of the phone after Periscope today. AJ and I are talking. I have a ton of work to do. Tomorrow I have to show a marketing plan to the internship I applied for. Well, to do this, I had to read an entire book that was like 500 pages. And I have to write a 10-page marketing plan. So I have a lot of work left to do. But the nice part is AJ is going to help give me some advice on what to do for marketing. Because AJ does this with Effortless English all the time. He does it with the Effortless English course. So I'll be talking to AJ after this. And I will tell him that you guys said have a good day and great wishes. So let's go ahead and get started with today's TOEFL word lesson. We'll get started with today's TOEFL word lesson. So my first word today is the word blunt. Blunt. B-L-U-N-T. Blunt. So blunt. Blunt. Has anyone heard this word, to be blunt? B-L-U-N-T. Blunt. Blunt. To be blunt. I am very blunt. Getting no. Someone knows what it means. Close. Good. Blunt, 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 blunt. So I'm getting no. So a lot of people don't know the word blunt. It's a common word in the English language. Blunt has two meanings, actually. The most common meaning is to be very direct or forthright. You say what is on your mind. You tell someone your opinion. You're very direct. Someone who's blunt usually says something, and it's usually very direct, but it could hurt someone's feelings. So let's say your friend asks you to listen to a song that they sang. They recorded it and they sang in a video, and they asked you to listen to it and tell them what you thought. Well, if you are blunt with them and they aren't very good, you will say, "Oh, you're not good at all. Stick to your day job. You are not a good singer. Your singing sounds like crap." That's being blunt. You're being very direct. You're telling what you think, but you're not really changing it to, let them down in a nice way. To let them down softly means to tell them they're not very good in a nice way. You're not being direct. So to be blunt means to be rude. Good, rude. Or to be forthright, to be straightforward, to be very direct, to be candid. So I've got a couple practice sentences for you. So if you said someone was a jerk, if they're not really being a jerk, but you say, "You're a jerk," that's being blunt. You're being blunt with them. But, so perfect practice sentence. Rachel was blunt with Sarah about how bad their plan was. So let's say Rachel and Sarah are planning to go on a trip. And so Rachel doesn't like the plan. Rachel thinks the plan is bad. And Rachel says to Sarah, "That plan is crap. That plan sucks. That plan is terrible." She's being blunt. She's kind of being mean and rude, but she's being honest, but she's just being rude in the way she says it. Another example would be the coach was very blunt when he told the player that he sucked or that the player was bad. So let's picture a soccer player or a football player who's terrible, who's awful. And they're trying out for a team, and the coach just walks up to the player and says, "You're not good. Get off my field." Well, that's being blunt. He's being very rude and very direct. So that's the first meaning of blunt. But it also can mean a worn down edge or point. So a worn down edge or point means, let me go get an example. Perfect example. I've got one. Wait 1 second. 1 second. Perfect example. We've all seen a knife. Knives are sharp. They can hurt you. Knives are very sharp. Well, the opposite of a knife would be a blunt object. So a blunt object would be something hard and heavy that doesn't have a sharp edge. So this doesn't have a sharp edge. So this is a blunt object. Flat object. So you'll see in crime movies or criminal movies or anything like that talks about someone getting hit and killed with something, they'll say the man was killed with a blunt object. So that is something like this, something that doesn't have sharp edges, something that's doesn't have a point, it's just something hard. So if someone were to take this and go whack and I get knocked out and I die, this is a blunt object. This is a blunt object. So it's the opposite of a sharp object. It is a blunt object. So if someone were to hit me with this, I'm getting hit with a blunt object. Another perfect example would be a hammer. If you're getting hit with a hammer, is a blunt object. So it's very dull. It's not sharp. There's no point. So this is what it means also to be blunt. You'll hear it common. If you read a book, a mystery book, and it says that the person was hit with a blunt object, that means something flat. You'll see a lot of movies, people get hit with like toys, like little statues. So the knife is not blunt. The knife is very sharp. If someone were to take it and go, "Wah!" It would be just a quick stab or a quick cut because it's so sharp. But a blunt object is like this, very flat. So if it hit me, you'd have to keep hitting me and hitting me to hurt me. So that's my example. That's a good example for a blunt object. And yes, hammers are blunt. Hammers are blunt objects. They have a flat front. Now, if you get hit with the other side of a hammer, like the sharp part, it's not considered really blunt, but the flat part is blunt. And yeah, I'm being careful. I've got a butter knife. It's not sharp. I can use that. But so that's my first example for blunt, something that is blunt. So does everyone understand the word blunt? Does everyone understand what the word blunt means? Are my examples good? I will wait a little bit. Thank you for the hearts. I'm seeing hearts. Purple hearts and pink hearts. Cool. Everybody's got it. That's great. Because that's a new word too. A lot of people don't understand that word. So that's great that you know this word now. So that's my first word of the day. Now my second word of the day is a little bit dark. It's a dark word. Has anyone heard the word condemn? Condemn. To be condemned. Or you condemn someone. Has anyone heard the word condemn? C-O-N-D-E-M-N. Condemn. Getting yes, no. Okay, cool. So a lot of people have heard this word, to be condemned. But I'm going to teach it anyway, just so you understand, because you will see this a lot in academic writing. You'll see this on the TOEFL exam or the IELTS. It's very common. Condemn, to be condemned. And this means to be an expressed disapproval. So an expressed disapproval. So let's picture a judge. A judge, and let's picture, okay, perfect example. There's a murderer in the room. A murderer killed someone. And the judge says, you are condemned to life in prison. Well, he's saying you're condemned because he disapproves of the act of murder. So it's an express disapproval. So he's telling him, you are punished for murdering someone. So you are condemned to a life in prison or a life in jail. This is common. You'll hear this a lot with jail, being thrown in jail or condemned to death. To be condemned to death means you're going to be killed, that you're sentenced to death. To be sentenced to death means you are going to be killed. You're going to be killed. So another great example, I brought it up before, but Game of Thrones. Has anyone seen Game of Thrones? Does anyone watch Game of Thrones? Game of Thrones. I'll wait for you to answer. Thank you for the hearts. Okay, so of course, yes, this is great. So a lot of people know Game of Thrones. Well, Eddard Stark is one of the main characters, and they think that he is trying to steal the throne. The throne is the big chair from the king. He's trying to become king. So they condemn him to death. And it's because they think he's trying to do something bad, so they condemn him to death. And they cut his head off. They go, fuck, and his head falls off. Oh. So this is what it means to be condemned. It means that you're sentenced to a punishment. You're sentenced to a punishment. So you're given a punishment. So another example, it's a little exaggerated, but it's funny, would be the student who talked in class was condemned to writing sentences on the chalkboard all evening. So what this means is you'll see this in movies like The Simpsons and all kinds of other shows where if a kid gets in trouble at school, he has to write on the chalkboard, I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. I will not talk in class. And that is the punishment. So that student was condemned to writing for hours in the classroom. So that's another example. It's a little exaggerated, but that's another great example for condemned. So again, it means to be sentenced to a punishment. So it means to be punished in some way or told that you're going to be punished in some way. So I have a good sentence for you. Perfect, easy sentence is the murderer was condemned to death. So this means he was sentenced to death. That because he killed someone else, he was killed too. His punishment was to be killed. Another great example would be because Ryan wore a goofy shirt, he was condemned to being made fun of all day at school. So because he wore a goofy looking shirt or a funny shirt, he got made fun of. He was sentenced to being made fun of all day. So to be condemned. So does anyone, it's a verb, by the way, it's a verb. So does everyone understand what it means to be condemned? It means to be sentenced to a punishment. So it means you are receiving a punishment. Getting a yes. Yeses are good. Yeses show I'm doing my job. Okay, good. Wait a little bit longer, make sure everybody gets it. Yes. I understand. Good, good. Okay, so everybody understands. So, do I have any questions for today then? Those are our 2 words for today. Our 2 words are condemned and blunt. Condemn and blunt. So do I have any questions for today? I'd be happy to take questions. I can only take a few today just because I have to talk to AJ soon. AJ has only a few minutes in the day to talk. I will wait. So can you give some suggestions on how to get time for English if we are busy during the day? That's a great question. I really like this question, actually. My first piece of advice is to start, and I'll answer the conversation question next. So my first piece of advice is to start by downloading YouTube videos like my YouTube videos, the Periscope lessons, and turn them into an MP3. So turn them into an audio. And when you're walking to work, when you're sitting at work, when you're sitting at lunch, listen to them and practice listening. That's my first piece of advice. So to multitask, to do several things at once. And then the next thing would be to schedule your days early on. Schedule your days early. So at the beginning of the week, take an hour and schedule your day so that you have a time period during the day that you'll learn English. So if you schedule your day, you'll be able to find more time in the day I'm telling you, I promise. If you give like an hour a day to something, so let's say you work during the day. Let's say you block off your work hours during the day, and you realize, hey, I've got an hour of downtime, an hour of time I don't use during the day that I never really recognized, where I take breaks or take a nap. Well, just start listening.